Welcome to the Action Network studio in New York City. I'm Maria Marino, and this is Green Dot Daily. We come to you live every weekday at 3 Eastern on our YouTube channel and the Action app. We have a jam-packed show today. The Heat are back in the hot seat. We'll also get WNBA picks, talk UFC, Champions League, and a whole lot more. But we start with the NBA. And say hello to our Action Network senior writer, Matt Moore. You are there in Miami covering the finals. How do the Heat intend on slowing down Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic as they try to get back in this?
Well, as you would imagine, Maria, Eric Spoelstra not exactly forthcoming on tactics and strategy, not exactly laying it all out for us. Hashtag Heat culture. But look, he's been pretty honest about the fact that there isn't a solve. Like, there's no really good option for a lot of what they do. They've tried switching it. That doesn't work. They've tried bringing doubles on Jamal Murray. That doesn't work. They've tried playing zone. The Nuggets did a much better job against that in Game 3. So there isn't a solve. They've been focused on they've got to win with effort. They've got to win with high execution plays. To me, this is indicative. If you are around the Heat in the series from a media perspective, to me, there is a very strong, look, we have almost no margin for error. We have to make a lot of things go our way. If we do not play with force, if we do not play with aggression, if we do not win 50-50 balls and then knock down threes, we're not going to have a chance in this series. They would not admit that it's that bad for them. But the sense that I get is that they recognize that they're kind of up against it as far as the series goes.
Well, definitely. And look, when they won Game 2, Jamal Murray still had 18 points, but that, is a lot better than 30 plus. So they would probably have to try to at least contain him a little bit. Now, as we look at Game 4 tonight, in my opinion, it's pretty hard to pick a side. So how are you approaching betting this?
All right, let's start with the under first half, 106.5, the Evan H. Abrams special. As Evan Abrams, our director of research, has noted this over and over and over again in his trends pieces, and it's been a great tale. I think there's some logical reasons to go along with it, too. Look, it's 3-0 in the NBA Finals and 12-3 in the finals over the last 3 seasons. It's 109, 69-3, 61% in the playoffs over the last 3 years. And the reality is, for me, this is about pace, is that the Heat cannot go up and down the floor with the Denver Nuggets. If this is a higher variance game in terms of possessions, they can't win that. So they have to drag this thing down. These are 2 slow teams. Now, Denver's willing to go ahead and do the same. They want to run multiple options and multiple actions in a set because they have more options to go to. So I think that the pace on this is going to be glacial again. It's been slow in the series. It does get slow in the second half as well, but some of the scoring tends to pick up then. I think first half under continues to be a really good play.
Well, as you mentioned before, this is kind of a must-win for the Heat. So do you have a play on them?
I do. Let's go Heat first quarter on the money line, plus 110. Miami's plus 3.2. Point differential in the first quarter after a loss in the playoffs the last 2 seasons. And this is a kitchen sink game. They tend to respond really well after losses. That's why they've reached the conference finals 2 years ago in a row and made the finals this year. They respond whenever they're up against it. So I expect them to come out with those high energy plays. I expect them to come out and grab all those 50-50 balls. And so the Nuggets have honestly started a little slow in all 3 games. They have not been dominant in the first quarters the way that they have throughout their playoff run. And so I think Miami's able to win this first quarter. I'll take the plus 110 versus a plus 0.5 on the spread based on the fact that, look, it can wind up in a tie. But I'm willing to go ahead and get the extra 12 cents for a win with the option of a push if it ties rather than go the other direction and win on a tie. That point isn't enough a value for me in this one. I do think Miami comes out and puts everything towards it. I will say I'm not going to bet it, but I lean towards Nuggets minus 3.5 for the full game.
Well, a 2-1 lead in a series historically doesn't mean a whole lot. That drastically changes when the lead goes to 3-1. So I'm sure we'll be seeing a desperate Miami team this evening. Matt Moore, enjoy the game tonight, and thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
To baseball, with the Yankees and Red Sox opening a series in the Bronx, 97% of money is on tonight's game to go over the total. A bit later, Marlins face the White Sox, and 91% of the money is coming in on the under. Let's bring in Action Network's Billy Ward now. And predicting whether or not there will be a run in the first inning, that's your specialty. Let's start with the Red Sox and Yankees. What made you zero in on that game?
Yeah, this was an interesting one. If I look at the game as a whole, I'm about in line with the market on the first inning, but my model is showing that the vast majority of that equity is on the Yankees side. Obviously, with Garrett Cole pitching for the Yankees, we're not expecting a lot from the Red Sox early, but the Yankees have one of the more powerful top threes in baseball, and that data is based a little bit on Aaron Judge being in there, but for most of the season, Giancarlo Stanton was missing. So obviously, it's a bit of a step down going from Judge to Stanton, but I'm still showing a ton of value on it. I have it at about plus 170 implied for just the Yankees to score a run, and you can get plus 210 or sometimes a little bit even better than that on the Yankees specific side. So normally when I bet these, I like to hedge it by betting on the full game first inning over. Not doing that this time. That one I think is a little bit negative EV, but the Yankees specific line is a good one.
All right, there you go. So a Yurfie, if I'm not mistaken. What about the other game you like, Marlins and White Sox? What's your pick there?
Yeah, there's a few, so I urge everyone to go check out my article because I have 4 or 5. I think last time I came on, the 2 I gave out lost, and the other 3 in my article all won. So, don't just play the ones that we give out on the show.
Got it.
But I am on the no-run first inning or NRFI side on the White Sox Miami. Miami starter Uri Perez has made 5 starts in the big leagues, and he has allowed 0 runs his first time through the order. Even his second time through the order, he's been really good. I think 1.19 ERA. And then, the last few starts, he's gotten beaten up pretty bad late in the game. So when we see splits like that, that means the total is heavily dependent on those runs coming later rather than earlier. And then we also have 2 teams in the White Sox and Marlins. Neither of them are particularly top heavy in terms of where they get their scoring from. And the White Sox have their ace. I believe Dylan Cease is starting for the White Sox too. So it's just a really good pitching matchup for runs to be backloaded. And with a relatively small run total, that means we should be pretty safe in the first inning. I'd take this one all the way down to about minus 150.
All right, well, for those at home wondering, with our Action Pro subscription, you can actually see sharp signals on these games, both of which align with Billy's thought process here. All right, let's move on to UFC. That's, of course, your other specialty. What are your best bets for this pay-per-view weekend?
Yeah, this is a fun one. The first one I'm looking at is Dan Ige. And I've gone back and forth whether I want to play his stoppage odds at plus 130, which is what we're going with officially, or just the knockout odds at plus 165 or so. He's fighting Nate Landwehr. Landwehr has almost no defense. He just comes forward, hands down, swinging for the fences. While Ige is a really crisp, really technical, solid striker. With Landwehr absorbing more than 5.5 significant strikes per minute, I think that's a really rough style of fighting for someone with the power that Ige has. But my only concern and why I went with inside the distance rather than a knockout is Landwehr is insanely durable. He gets dropped in almost all of his fights, but frequently comes back to at least survive, if not pick up the win. And for a fighter like Ige, the sharpest plan might be if you hurt him on the feet, jump on a neck, jump on a submission, grab something like that. You can't durable your way through a choke. If you get put unconscious, you're put unconscious. So we're only giving up a little bit of value on that one. I've got it pretty close to about right on either side of that. So if you wanted it a little bit juicier, you could play the knockout. But at plus 130, that's a pretty fair line for inside the distance.
What else you got?
Then my other one, got to go with the Action Man. That's Chris Curtis. Of course, his nickname is the Action Man. So here at Action Network, we love to bet on him. He's a slight underdog against Nasruddin Imavov. I'm not really sure why he's the underdog here. Curtis is 4-2 in the UFC. One of his losses was against Jack Hermanson, who just kind of ran away from him. His other loss, he took a headbutt that the ref didn't see, which caused him to lose a round that he probably should have won. That was his most recent fight against Kelvin Gastelum. Outside of that, 4 wins, I think 3 knockouts in that span. Imavov has 0 knockdowns in the UFC, so huge power advantage for Curtis. Curtis, in theory, is probably pretty weak on the ground, but he has 100% takedown defense so far in the UFC. So we should see pretty much exclusively a stand-up fight here. Curtis throws with more volume, which plays well to the judges, and has more power, so he's got the stoppage upside. Last little factoid that I like, Curtis is 5 inches shorter, but actually has slightly longer reach than Imavov. That's something we like to target because being shorter allows you to carry more muscle while making the same weight class, but having the longer arms negates some of the risk of fighting a taller, longer fighter. So it really just checks all the boxes here, with the most important one being the nickname of the Action Man.
Right, which, as you said, is good for us here at Action Network. Billy Ward, always great insight for you. Thanks so much for joining Green Dot Daily.
Thanks for having me.
And for more from Billy and our crew on how to bet UFC 289, tune in to the weigh-in live at 4 Eastern on our Action Network Twitter and YouTube pages. Green Dot Daily is presented by BetMGM. Use bonus code ACTION when signing up to get up to $1,000 paid back in bonus bets if you don't win your first bet. Terms and conditions apply. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. To the NHL as we bring in our expert Nick Martin. So the Panthers escape with an overtime victory. What's your reaction to how Game 3 played out and what it means for the series?
Yeah, I think you definitely said it right when you said escape. It was pretty clear to me that Vegas still looked like the slightly better side. If you had a Panthers ticket, I think you got off a little lucky there because, I mean, they didn't look like a worthy favorite to me. I thought they were the worst team entering the series. I think that they have looked like the worst team. So my opinion on whether or not they have any value as a favorite in Game 4 would definitely be that they don't, and that you're starting to reach there. I'd kind of rather target some other narratives. And I mean, I think the one thing going for Florida is probably the way that they scored the overtime goal, which was Aiden Hill finally letting in a softie. He's a goalie that is very inexperienced, and everyone's kind of been counting on falling apart and falling back down to earth. So if anything, like, that's probably the greatest positive. And then obviously that Sergei Bobrovsky, their goaltender, was dominant again, which has been the theme of the playoffs so far. So yeah, I think from a side perspective, I still like Vegas chances. If anything, I'd probably look at betting them to win both of these games and wrap it up in 5.
Yeah, you mentioned Bobrovsky. He had 25 saves out of 27 attempts in Game 3. Now for Game 4, you mentioned probably wouldn't go with Florida, but what would you bet?
I would. So what I'm seeing the most value with is I like the overtime tie. I think that that's a good look. So when we're talking about plus 360, all 3 options are obviously in place, so you're going to get a longer number. But I think that the avenues for this game to remain tight are there. Vegas is playing really, really well defensively. So outside of if Hill lets in a lot of softies or a couple, I don't really see how it's going to open up. And then Florida, the theme of their whole playoff has just been kind of trying to hang in games, win close games behind elite goaltending performances. So I think both of those narratives set us up really well to look for the long shot on the tie again.
All right, sounds like a plan. Is there a prop you like for Game 4?
Yeah, so I think Aiden Hill to go under on saves is going to be a really good prop. Unfortunately, they take a little longer to put these out, but I would play the under down to 27.5. It was 30.5 yesterday. There's going to be an adjustment because Florida had whatever they finished with. I think he finished with 20 saves in counting the 4 minutes of overtime. So there'll be an adjustment, but I'm not expecting it to be enough. And because what we've seen, so for most of the season, Florida loves to pepper the goal with a lot of shots. Their scorekeeper's generous, so the totals stay high. But I think that with how Vegas is defending, I'm just not seeing them cracking 30, 31 shots too often. So I think that is another good bet, although it is a little counterintuitive in a game where you think there's a potential for overtime. You can have a frustrating backdoor loss. But other than that, I think it's a really good look.
All right, well, we're not hoping for that. Nick Martin, thank you for joining us. Enjoy the weekend.
Thank you.
To soccer now. The Champions League final is Saturday at 3 Eastern. Manchester City was at plus 275 to lift the trophy pre-tournament, now heavily favored at minus 500. Inter, meanwhile, was a plus 4,000 long shot before the tournament and is now at plus 310. So with that, Anthony Dabbundo joins us. What's your prediction for this final? I know you've been highly anticipating it.
Yeah, so back in January when we got to the round of 16, I gave out Inter 34-1 on Wonder Goal. So we're hoping to get that to the window. It's been a rough week or two for the futures. We had Roma and Fiorentina die, so the third and final Italian team standing on Saturday. They also have the toughest matchup, facing off against the unquestioned best team in the world. Man City has the chance, if they win this final on Saturday, to become the second English team ever and the first since 1999 to win the treble, which is when you win the league, the cup, and the Champions League in the same season. They won the FA Cup final on Saturday last week against Man United. Now they have a chance to do it in Europe. I actually think they're a little inflated, though, in the market. I think that when you look at the projections that I have, I think Inter should be about plus 275 to win this tournament, win this match on Saturday. That's either in 90 minutes or via extra time and penalties, so either one. And I think they have some matchups, situations where they can maybe get this game closer to a coin flip. Of course, they're at a talent disadvantage, but from a stylistic perspective, Inter's very good and very physical defensively, and they have three pretty big center backs who aren't going to get overmatched physically by Haaland, his strength and his pace. And they also generally play a more defensive midfielding group if Brozovic starts, which I'm expecting. They have enough kind of breaking up the play and congesting the middle of the field to force City to go out wide and do stuff that they haven't done quite as much this season. City also, Pep Guardiola in his traditional past, if he has a flaw as manager, he wants game control to the fullest extent. He demands that his team not take chances in possession, and this City team is no different. They've been much more efficient going forward, but there are times when they tend to be a little too conservative and can let inferior teams stay in the game. We saw that on Saturday. City's press was a little bit off, and Man United was able to get a bunch of chances to get back into that match, even after City scored 15 seconds in. So I think there are some paths here. Inter, very good on set pieces, scored the second most goals in the tournament in transition. So, in those quick strike attacking moments. And they have very good passers in midfield. So City's not pressing a ton. It could lead to some potential for Inter to break through and get some chances on the break. With that being said, their defense is going to be under a lot of pressure to defend the majority of the match without the ball. So there are certainly going to be some issues for Inter matching up with the superior team.
Well, Inter Milan seeking its first Champions League trophy since 2010. How are you feeling about props?
Yeah, so it is the final, and so we like to, dig into some props, and you get more markets available for a match like this. Alessandro Bastoni is one of the starting center backs for Inter Milan. He's completed more passes than any player for Inter in the league this season in Italy. And he's pretty much the main person that they look to build out from in possession. And I think it's going to be a difficult match for him because he is a little bit athletically limited. He's a bigger guy, technically pretty good with his feet. But if he gets in a situation where Inter turns it over against this City press and loses possession, he's the kind of guy that may have to take a foul for the team in a way and make a challenge on Haaland to stop him or De Bruyne making a run on the edge of the penalty area. So at 3-1 to get booked, he's very likely to start, very likely to play the full 90 minutes. I think that's a good bet because he's going to be under a ton of pressure, more than he normally is when he plays against inferior teams that don't press as high. So City, with their possession ability and their athleticism on the front line, could cause some problems for Bastoni at 3-1, and then John Stones plus 250 to register a shot on goal. Now you may look and you say, well, he's a center back for Man City, but his role is a little bit different now than it's been in the past under Guardiola. When they build in possession, they tend to push up Stones further up the pitch. He kind of tucks into the midfield role, and so with that means he has more touches higher up the pitch. And carries the ball into the final third more for City. City have gotten a ton of goals from Ilkay Gundogan in the last couple of matches in kind of the role right in front of Stones. I expect Inter to be very keyed in on him. Could open the door for Stones just to be on the edge of the penalty area and get a shot or two from distance. He puts one on goal, and then he's also very dangerous on set pieces. City is expected to have more of the corners in this match. Stones is always in the penalty area. His size is big on those. So even if he's not necessarily scoring, I do like Stones to get a shot on target at plus 250 as a prop in this one.
Well, Anthony Dabbundo, I hope you can cash on that future bet you made back in January with Inter. Thanks for stopping by. Always a pleasure.
Thanks for having me. And yeah, we're all praying.
To the WNBA, the biggest slate we've had so far this season with 5 games. Liberty want to get back in the win column in Atlanta. The Mercury, Fever, and Lynx are all looking for their second win. The Sky in LA will try to win 3 in a row, and Washington is a heavy favorite with Seattle missing the league's top scorer, Jewel Lloyd. With that, we say hello to Action Network writer Jim Turvey. Which of these games caught your eye in terms of betting?
Yeah, you touched on it briefly in the intro there. This Washington-Seattle game is the one I'm looking at hard. This opened at Washington -7. I was already kind of looking at that as a potential get-right spot for the Mystics. They haven't looked right all season. The vibes have been a little weird. I'm less of a vibes better, so I was looking at this as like a get-right spot, maybe going to Seattle. But the big news dropped. The reason you see this number much, much different now is that the Storm are going to be without Jewel Lloyd, as you said. And she's not just the leading scorer in the W. She is that by a good margin, but she also completely drives their offense. Between her points and assists per game, she makes up almost half of their offense. Her usage rate right now, 35.2%. That would be tracking for the second highest usage rate in WNBA history. So this is a player who is kind of uniquely tethered to their offensive production. Dano Mattia, who's been on the show before, he came up with an amazing stat this morning. So Seattle's offensive rating with Jewel Lloyd on the court is not great. It's -9.9. This is not a good team, but without them, it's -52.7. Comically bad, historically bad. Now it's a small sample, so we can't, weigh this too much, but this is an offense that it's going to be sputtering tonight. So my first play here that I really like is Mystics first half -6.5. This number is out to 12.5, as we said. There's the chance that the Mystics are up 20 going in the fourth quarter. They put the bench in, and you get that backdoor cover that we all hate. So I want to target to the first half when the Storm are fully scrambling, trying to figure out their offense without Lloyd. Jade Melbourne is probably going to be the one who takes over at the point guard spot. She's interesting. She's young, out of Australia. She's got some talent, but she's not going to be hitting the ground running in this first half here. So I really like the Mystics first half as my favorite play, but I also like looking at there's an alternate team total out there. If you look at the Storm here, this number 65.5, you can get it at +240. This is a team that cleared this number by 1 last game, and that was with Lloyd. So now that they're without Lloyd, there's a chance that, it gets really, really ugly here. They also didn't even clear this number in the first game of the season against the Aces in what was a pretty big blowout. So I'm looking to fade the Storm offense, each and every way. Player props wise, they actually haven't even dropped these yet. So there's a chance the Mystics are up so big that you may actually want to look at some Mystics players unders because, they get out to such a big lead that they don't even play the fourth quarter. So there's lots of angles for this game because I think Jewel Lloyd is kind of uniquely positioned in the league where her team is so reliant on her for offense, 28.5 points, 3.5 assists, that this offense that already is among the worst in the league is really going to be floundering against a really tough Mystics defense to start with.
This is a big opportunity for the Mystics. They're going to want to capitalize. Obviously, they are hungry to bounce back after a 2-point loss to Minnesota on June 3rd, the Lynx being one of the worst teams in the league. What other game are you interested in tonight?
Yeah, the second one I'm looking at here is Sky Sparks. This was one that when it came out, I was hoping we would get around maybe a pick'em or so, and I was actually be looking to the Sparks. They were favored by 3 to start off with. It jumped to 1.5. Now it's back to 3.5, as you see. I am looking to fade the Sky a little bit. So how I'm going to do that even more specifically, because I don't love the spread there. That's about what I would have it at. But I do think the Sky, there's a potential for the Sky to go under on their team total here. This is a team that right now is the number 1 shooting 3-point team in the WNBA. They're shooting 38.3% from 3. And this is not really a team of shooters. This is, in all honesty, a team that I think a lot of us looked at before the season and said, being able to spread the floor is going to be a weakness of the Skies. They've proven that wrong so far, and, credit to them. But there's a few players who really are shooting above their head right now. We've got Courtney Williams, who's shooting 42% from 3 right now compared to a career rate of 36%. You've got Kalia Copper shooting 45% from 3 compared to about 35 for her career. And then Alana Smith, who has been one of the best stories to start the season. She's really playing well. She's hitting at a 48% clip compared to 25% for her career. So there's several key 3-point shooters for this guy that are looking at, some potential regression coming up here. So when you add that to, the league average rate is around 34% from three. So there's some regression due there. They're only scoring 81.5 points a game to start with. This is kind of an average Sparks defense, so maybe you'd project it around there. And then with some of this regression, the Sparks also do have Azurá Stevens back. She made her debut in the last game for the Sparks. That was their best defensive performance of the season. It's a one-game sample. You don't want to run with too much, but she's a great defender. She's going to bring a lot to that interior defense. And then when you add that to some of the shooting that I think is above their head right now for this guy, and this team total is one of my favorite plays for the day.
And the Sparks are another team that are going to be very heavily motivated, recently having that letdown loss against the aforementioned Storm. So, the Sparks trying to get back to 500. Jim Turvey, you have a lot of fans here at Action Network. We're so happy you could join us on the show today.
Thanks so much, Maria. It's always fun to come on.
And by the way, for more on these games, I urge you to check out the Buckets podcast. Myself and Sean Kerner went over every game on the slate today in even more detail. Jim, thanks again.
See ya.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Nick Giffen, and I am here to give you my favorite bet for this weekend's Toyota Save Mart 350 at Sonoma Raceway for the NASCAR Cup Series. So, for my favorite bet, we're going to look at the top Toyota market, and we're going to fade Tyler Reddick here. And to do that, we're going to bet on the other 5 drivers to finish as the top Toyota driver. So BetMGM does have the most favorable odds to do this. And to do this, we're going to bet one total unit, just one unit. And we're going to bet 0.27 of that on Christopher Bell at 5.5 to 1, a quarter unit on Martin Truex Jr. at 6 to 1, 0.195 units on Denny Hamlin at 8 to 1, 0.175 units on Ty Gibbs at 9 to 1, and 0.11 units on Bubba Wallace at 15 to 1. What I really like about this bet is all we need is one of these 5 drivers to beat Tyler Reddick. Now, yes, Tyler Reddick is one of the premier road course racers in the NASCAR Cup Series, the others being Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott, which are both Chevy drivers. However, this is historically Tyler Reddick's worst road course so far in his career. I have something called my driver quality metric, which basically looks at how a driver performs across all the tracks and how he performs at this particular track. And Tyler Reddick performs about 15% worse at Sonoma than he does at his average track. So we're getting him at his worst road course so far of his career. This is also a very good road course for some of the other drivers. Christopher Bell was the best Toyota driver overall last year on the road courses. Martin Truex Jr. is a multiple-time winner here at Sonoma. Denny Hamlin has a win at Sonoma. Ty Gibbs, really great road course racer with multiple road course wins in the Xfinity Series. And Bubba Wallace has really stepped up his road course game. He's made a lot of focus and attention on road courses over the past year or two and has made massive gains. So we're catching Tyler Reddick at his worst road course and getting these other 5 at what should be at least a good, if not great, road course for them. So I do think one of them has a very good shot, enough of a shot to supplant Tyler Reddick as the top Toyota in this race. Like I said, if you size it that way, we're betting 1 unit total, and at minimum, we're going to return 3/4 of a unit profit on this bet. So that is my bet for this weekend's NASCAR Cup Series race at Sonoma Raceway. Good luck with your bets, everybody, and enjoy the race.
Remember, any picks we give out here on the show, you can easily reference by following Green Dot Daily in the Action app. We keep track so you don't have to. Green Dot Daily is presented by BetMGM. Use bonus code ACTION when signing up to get up to $1,000 paid back in bonus bets if you don't win your first bet. Terms and conditions apply. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. That's all for Green Dot Daily. I'm Maria Marino. Thanks for watching all week long, and I'll see you again Monday at 3 Eastern on the Action Network YouTube channel and the Action app.